kind of dog shit views, but I mean, pretty good for me, so I guess here we go again. So to be honest, somebody at work figured out that I made keycaps, saw my keyboard and really liked that keycap on it, so he just wanted me to make one similar. I'm using all the same normal ingredients that I normally do, all the same tools, but I did buy some new resin. This is Smoothcast 326, and I don't know, Google said it was good for keycaps, so I guess we'll see if that's true. Do not do what I did here. There is a much better way to open containers like this if you want to control the amount of liquid that comes out. The smart thing to do is to put one hole at the top and one hole at the bottom. You're going to use that one hole at the bottom to actually pour the liquid out of, and you use the hole at the top to cover with your finger to create a vacuum so it can't actually pour out until you allow air to take that liquid's place. You can see right here I release the pressure and all of the resin can then pour out into the bowl. That way I can, like, bounce my finger on and off the top hole, and I can be very, very careful with the amount of liquid I put into this. It's good for precise measurements. So I was immediately not a huge fan of this resin. It felt a lot more liquidy, I think is the word I could use, instead of like a gel. And I was not a big fan of that, and it definitely caused some issues later, but it does turn out so much better. Not gonna lie, I could not figure out how to separate this and like add the right amount of dye. I am very limited on resources ever since I moved into my new house, so I tried using a different mold to create little pockets of resin that I could dye individually. But this thing has a really, really fast cure time. Not a huge fan of that. I started making my second color here, and within 5 minutes this little purple mixture I made was already starting to harden. As is custom with most of my videos, I did not plan this out. Here I officially started creating the galaxy pattern. I just did my best to create a diagonal line across and create little swirly dealies. I wanted to try and make multiple different keycaps because I could already tell that the liquidity, I don't know if that's a word, of this resin was going to cause issues with like it actually holding that diagonal shape, and most likely it would just fill out the whole entire top of the keycap, which I didn't want. So to counteract that, I figured if I just made enough, eventually one would look good, right? This is when I started adding the black in. I tried filling in the opposite corners of where the diagonal galaxy was going to go first, so that I could maybe take up that space with the black resin and not the blue and purple. After that, I started pouring the rest of my just clear resin mix into the keycap, which I strategically left the bubbles in to create this starry effect. That was believable, right? At this point, I had entered panic mode because I could tell the resin was already starting to set. So I very, very quickly made the stem, and then I put it together. In case it wasn't obvious, I ran out of time before the resin fully set, so I could really only make one keycap with that first batch of resin. But not gonna lie, I actually like how it turned out. This is the one I ended up giving him as like the finalized cap, and I made, I would say, at least a dozen more. So I was gonna have my girlfriend record a line for me in the video, and then I was gonna like clear my throat. It was gonna be super funny, right? But I think I forgot to tell her this plan. Anyway, here's the line I got from her. Link impressions aside, look at how satisfying this demolding is.
Hey Colby!
What? What do you want?
How about you read the f***ing instructions before you actually do anything with the resin?
I don't know if it was super obvious, but the keycap that I first made was a little bit squishier than normal, which is not that cool. Not super Segoy, as the kids nowadays say. And I think it was because I mixed the wrong ratio of resin. See, if I actually read the instructions on the front of the bottle, I would see that it's not a 1-to-1 mix of weight, it's a 1-to-1 mix of volume. Moral of the story, I'm gonna try and make another batch. This time I decided I wanted it to be yellow and orange. So I mixed my colors up and yet again failed to draw a diagonal line inside of the mold. Whatever, it is what it is. I ended up trying to mix some orange into that yellow. Then I proceeded to make some more black resin to fill in that background. I poured the black into the molds, and then I started making another batch of resin so that I can make the stems. If anybody asks, it went very smoothly. Ah! Shit. Double shit, triple shit. Fuck. It's very important to remember that building the stems is one of the most important parts of making these keycaps. If those aren't filled in properly, the keycap won't be able to stick to your keyboard and it'll be loose, or I don't know, it's just, you really want to make sure that they're completely filled, they have no bubbles, and that the ratio of part A to part B is perfect for the stems. I spent some extra time making sure that the top part of the mold lined up with the bottom part, and then I left it for a few days. After demolding my keycaps, I was pretty impressed with how they turned out. There were two that I really liked. There were some problems, and I'll show them in a second, but I don't know, I think these turned out a lot better in my opinion. The one on the right here ended up being my favorite. I think it looks the most like a galaxy in my opinion. I think the colors ended up melding really well together. It stayed relatively stiff. I like this resin so much more than the other kind that I was using. That doesn't mean it's not without its problems. I noticed a little bit of like bubble buildup near this little section right here. And that wasn't super cool, but I'll take it. I think this one also turned out pretty cool. It almost looks like an orc cloud or something. Overall, these ended up being my two favorite keycaps, out of this batch at least. And I can strongly say that I recommend this resin that I'm using now more than any other I've used in the past. I think I used to use like a casting resin, I don't know, but this brand was way better in my opinion. I think that the orange ones turned out better than the blue ones, but my friend liked the blue one better, so I ended up giving that one to him. Either way, they both turned out pretty cool. As always, thank you so much for watching. I don't really do outros, so...